Ear of Corn, the field where the Scarecrow walks. On the far edge of Nebraska, in a place where tourists never went and the roads were overgrown with weeds, lived a farmer named Henry Cole. He owned 10 acres of cornfield, an old wooden house, and a silence that at night felt heavier than any storm. Henry had spent his whole life growing corn. He knew every stalk, every sound the field made when the wind touched it. But one summer he began to notice that something was wrong. One evening Henry was walking home from work. The sun was setting, painting the sky with red and black shades. Then he heard it for the first time, a creak. Not human, not animal, more like an old wet board twisting under pressure. He turned around. The field stood still, but between the rows he saw a silhouette that hadn't been there that morning. A scarecrow, a straw body, an old coat, a burlap sack for a head, arms sticking out like a crucified figure. Henry frowned. He had never put up any scarecrows. He didn't see the point. Kids playing a prank, he thought. But something cold twisted inside his chest. The next morning, the scarecrow stood closer to the house. A few meters, but enough to notice. Henry checked the soil under it. There were no signs of dragging, no footsteps, no broken stalks. The scarecrow looked like it had grown in place. That evening, he drank coffee on the porch and heard the same creak. This time, closer. He grabbed his lantern and walked into the field. Creak. Again. Closer. He pointed the lantern between the stalks, and his heart dropped. The scarecrow was there again, halfway to the house. The lantern flickered. For a second it went out. When the light returned, one of the scarecrow's arms was raised, pointing directly at Henry. Henry locked the doors and windows. He sat in the living room, listening to the silence so hard he began hearing his own heartbeat. Outside, the corn whispered softly. 3:14 a.m. The rustling grew louder. 3:15 a.m. It sounded like footsteps moving between the stalks. 3:17 a.m. A creak, this time right behind the wall. Henry grabbed his shotgun and flung the door open. The field stood like a dark ocean. The moon hid behind clouds. And on the edge of the porch, just a few steps away, stood the scarecrow, arms lowered, head tilted, as if it were listening to his breathing. Shaking, Henry carried it back into the field, nailed it down, drove stakes around it, tied ropes, then hurried back inside. The next day, he decided to burn the scarecrow. Just walk up and throw a torch. What was he afraid of? A sack of straw. But when he approached, he saw that every rope was untied. The nails lay in the dirt, and the stakes had been pulled out, slowly, deliberately, as if someone enjoyed it. And more, on the burlap head, someone had drawn eyes. Dark, fresh, black as raven feathers. And they were watching. Henry stepped back. Something cracked under his boot. He looked down. It was a fingernail, human, dirty, old. The field froze. The wind died. The sunlight dimmed, although it was barely noon. Henry decided to go to the very center of the field, the place where, according to old stories, a homeless man had been found dead decades ago. The closer he got, the more he saw. The corn stalks were bent in one direction, like someone had pushed through them many times. In the center he found a pit, shaped like a grave, dug up from the inside. Nearby, pieces of rotten cloth. The same kind of cloth the scarecrow was wearing. Henry stood there, breathless. What was this? A curse? A sick joke? Something older? Creak. That familiar, horrifying sound. He turned. The scarecrow stood 3 meters behind him, head tilted further, eyes drawn wider, arms spreading. Henry raised his shotgun. The scarecrow took a step. One. Another. Each one with that awful creak. Henry sprinted through the field. Corn slashed his face, grabbed at his clothes. Behind him, uneven, creaking footsteps. Slow, but unavoidable. He broke free onto open ground and reached the barn. Locked himself inside. Collapsed onto the floor. Creak. Then knocking. Slow, patient, savoring his fear. Then silence. Henry, trembling, rose and peeked through a crack in the door. The Scarecrow stood right outside, and on its burlap face, with charcoal lines, someone had drawn what looked like a smile. No one heard what happened that night. When neighbors found Henry, his body was lying in the field, as if he had simply fallen. There were no signs of struggle, only thin, strange scratches around his throat, made by fingers that weren't quite human, but not animal either. The field stood quiet. The corn didn't move. The Scarecrow stood where it originally had been placed, nailed down. Still, only one thing had changed. Its eyes were wider, and beneath them, someone had written a new message with charcoal. Not alone. They say that now, when the sun sinks below the horizon and the wind stops touching the corn, the field becomes different. If you stare long enough, it looks like the Scarecrow turns its head, and sometimes, deep in the rows, you might see a silhouette moving, slowly, patiently, waiting, because at night, the whole field belongs to it, and those who step into the corn after dark never make it out by morning.